Well, I'm never going to buy PetSmart fish again. And I'm going to tell you why. I'll tell you the whole story, and at the end I'll tell you, in the end, who's responsible for what happened, whose fault it is. I'll go over that with you as well at the end of the video. But let's do this, borrowing an idea from an accountant. He used to be a friend of mine. He used to give people news about how much they owed the IRS by showing them his coral tank. He would tell them, hey, look at the coral, look at the beautiful coral tank I have. He had a beautiful coral tank. And he would turn down the lights, and then he would read to them what they owed to the IRS. He would take their mind off the bad news. Well, I don't want you to see the frown on my face, the anguish and agony on my face when I tell you this story. So let's go ahead and jump into why I'm never going to buy another fish from PetSmart. So I was running an errand over at Home Depot, and Home Depot happens to be right next to, actually across the street from my PetSmart. There's also a Petco right there, so I've got a couple of the big box options. And I figured, you know what, for community fish, like neons and rasboras, isn't that bad. So I go in there and I pick out some rasboras, I pick out some neons, and as the gentleman is putting them in the little container that they put them in before they bag them, a couple of the neons, they just sort of turn over and look like they've gone into some sort of horrible shock. And so he pulls out the ones that look like that, and eventually gets about 4 or 5 ones that stay upright and look okay. Now that was the first sign that something is not right. The fish, of course, were eventually going to go into this planted 55-gallon community tank, which, by the way, take a look at this lily. This lily has just blown up. Obviously it likes it there. He finally gets together a good group of neons, and he tells me, well, I get it, they just came in. And so I ask, well, when you say just came in, you have actually quarantined them, right? And his answer was, oh, of course. We always float the fish before we add it to the tank. He didn't even know what I meant by quarantine. Now right there, my gut told me, I mean, look at this guy, what a beast. It's prettier every day. My gut told me at that moment, I need to just tell him, look, I think I'm going to pass and walk out of there. But instead, being Mr. Nice Guy, I need more rummy nose. Look at those rummy nose. Man, they're nice. Being Mr. Nice Guy and just thinking, well, it'll be okay, I go ahead and tell him, okay, go ahead and bag things up. So shortly after adding him to a quarantine tank here at my house, along with some other fish that were in the beginning stages of quarantine, some ick showed up. One of the rasboras got ick. Now, ick for me is never a challenge. There's a little redhead Tapajos. Looking pretty sweet. So ick for me is usually very simple. I just raise the temperature, throw a little bit of ick attack, cordon ick attack, or a little bit of ick X, and that's it. It just goes away. Well, that was not the case with this ick. And little by little, almost every fish in the quarantine tank, except for a few of them that I got from PetSmart, who obviously had some level of immunity built up, just were tipping over and dying. So this was not normal ick. This was some sort of ick that came along with some other kind of virus So I continued the regimen of ick attack with the high temperature, but added Maricin, Fritz Maricin. And fish continued to die, and I removed one more dead pleco this morning. I mean, plecos are usually pretty tough, but this morning I took another one out. I lost some clowns. I lost a couple of the fish I got from there. The 3 cories are still alive that I picked up. A couple of neons, a couple of rasboras, but it just wiped everything out that was in there prior to adding these fish to the quarantine. The moral, really, of the story is very simple. Let's go over to the 210-gallon. Look at this big old pagoda snail trying to work his way across the tank. They come in a variety of shapes and a variety of patterns and colors. Really a beautiful snail. Here's the 210 South and Central American tank. Those chocolates. It's a lot of chocolate. Hey, Sally. This light is on its sunrise function, so it looks a little golden. Big old vieja. Picked her up as a little gray juvenile. Jackie Dempsey hanging around that rock. That's the only place that Jack Dempsey stays. She just stays right on that rock. Little Severum. And Geos. This albino Oscar is almost too much for the camera. So you're getting a lap of the fish room along with this story. I'm going to add a plant back into this part of the aquarium. I tried it bare, but I don't really like it. On the 300-gallon African cichlid tank, I was running it bare on the left side, and I eventually didn't like the way that looked. Plus, I wanted to cover up a big pit that the fire hap had dug. So I went ahead and filled it in and added some of those plastic plants. So at any rate, you know, PetSmart knows better. They get fish from faraway places with pathogens and bacteria and things that really none of the fish here probably are accustomed to. And they should, just out of responsible selling, do a quarantine, but they don't, obviously. And I know from store to store it's going to be different. Some stores might have a more fish-keeping savvy manager and create a quarantine system. I mean, they've come a long way with the separate sumps that they run under each rack. And if there's a problem with the fish, they'll just shut down that whole rack, that whole vertical section. But the fact that this store was selling fish that had just come in from who knows where, to me is just a real bad sign. So unless I hear different, I'm going to be staying away from any PetSmart fish. And I guess the big plus point on the whole thing is I didn't add these fish to my aquarium. If I had added these fish to the aquarium, I would have been in real bad shape. I mean, they probably would have wiped out every fish in this planted community, would have been completely killed. Let's go behind this 90-gallon. Let me show you the little female I'm growing out as as a mate for that big green tear. Look at her. Both the male and the female were from Whip. My friend Whip brought them over to me. She's moving sand, a lot of sand. That's all her work right there. That's all her redecorating, creating that big mound and practically bare bottom on the right side. That's her redecorating the tank, which is very similar to the work. Here we'll go up past my working sink area, past the 55-gallon. You can see the big male does the same thing. Look at this mound in the front. Tapers down to bare bottom in the back left. Comes up to a big mound in the middle, and then bare bottom on the right. That's all his work. This tank is usually nice and level after I clean it, and then he gets to work and redecorates. Yeah, the two of you are going to get along great. So there you have it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Certainly there's really no one to blame here really except myself, and the takeaway for me on this is whenever you perceive something, you know, that kind of stuff that gives you pause, makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, gives you that you know, your creep dar goes off, right? Something's wrong, listen to it. Don't just kind of go, well, how bad could it be, or maybe I'm just overreacting, or no, your gut feeling very often is right. And I didn't listen to mine. I paid the price, probably around $100 in total cost, and whatever the cost of that aggravation. But there you go. Maybe management will change, maybe conditions will change over time, but for now, PetSmart is on my do not buy fish list until they change something in how they deal with deliveries that might bring in viruses and pathogens that fish are just not able to handle, and that normal medications simply can't do anything about. All right, thank you, my friends, for tuning in, and we'll talk about this and a whole lot more on Saturday at the Cichlids and Coffee live stream. That's most Saturdays at 11 a.m. That's Central Time, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. If you'd like to support the channel, become a Patreon right here. Become a Patreon member, and it starts for as little as $3 a month. Details are in the description. And for my best fish keeping tips, click on this playlist up here, and to subscribe, which is greatly appreciated. Hit me in the mug right there, and here's a couple more playlists you can watch. Thank you so much, my friends. I'll see you again soon. That's it for me. Bye-bye.